All right. So welcome to the 6th meeting of the Blue Horizons Community Council. I thank you for all the members and especially for the guests for attending, because we really value your input and we know that you're a vital part of us moving our efforts to, well, get off fossil fuels is really important. Since we have a quorum, the first order of business is to approve the March meetings. And I hope everybody's had a chance to review them. Are there any changes, discussion, or revisions on the March meeting minutes? I'm taking your silence as a no. So do we have somebody who would like to recommend accepting the meeting minutes from March?
I'll move. Yeah, Keith, I'll move that.
All right.
I'll second.
Great. So we've got a move and second. So do we vote to accept the meetings? All say aye.
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 Or
Aye.
should we thumbs up because it's a virtual meeting? All right, great. The second part of our agenda is the membership and subcommittee discussion. And this has two parts. The first part is addressing our charter and how we go about accepting members. And we had a small group of, I think, 5 of us who met about 2 weeks ago. And we came up with a system which we can discuss today, and then we'll vote on how this approval goes probably in the next meeting. But where if we want to add somebody that they get a recommendation from one of the people on the boards, and that person on the board should discuss and with the person who potentially will be joining the board. And we'll discuss them in a membership committee meeting. The committee will come up with a recommendation to move forward on this. And then we will, if the committee decides to move forward with this person, they will then bring that person, the committee will bring that discussion forward at a full meeting, or that recommendation at the full meeting. And then the board will vote and it'll pass by a simple majority. And this is a great time to discuss this, to think if that system will work for us, if there's anything we want to change or adapt from that. Open to suggestions, because it's our committee. And if anybody else who's at the meeting wants to add any thoughts, that would be appreciated also.
Keith, are we putting in writing a limit on the total?
We hadn't discussed that. We of course want the committee to meet all of the objectives within our charter, but we don't want it to be a huge committee because, well, I think everybody would probably agree, huge committees are less effective than small committees. We did not discuss that.
Oh, sorry. I think we actually have a number in the charter now. I think it says up to 13. I might be off on that, but I know we had changed it at a previous meeting and set a number.
That, when you say that, I do remember that.
I'm going in to look at our charter right now. So
great, thank you, Sam.
This also brings up the notion that at some point we probably want to create bylaws, which is a little bit different than the charter. say things like term limits, and you know, there's some other kind of operating procedural stuff that bylaws do that the charter doesn't do. But let's see.
So this can be our first bylaw.
Actually, it says 3-year terms be awarded to founding members. Up to 13 members. Yeah, thanks, Eliza. Yep. The 13 members can be selected from membership composition categories. Yep. And I think we have like 9 now or something like that.
That's correct.
Yep. Okay. And what was your question again, Keith, that you're wanting input on?
Well, I was just summing up what we went through in the membership subcommittee discussion about how we would go about adding new members. And, you know, we thought that somebody could bring one forward, if one of the members could bring somebody forward or sponsor somebody to join the community group. And then we would have a discussion, and the process would be having a discussion in the membership subcommittee, which of course all the members are welcome to be a part of. And then the subcommittee would bring somebody forward if they thought they would be a good addition to the committee. All right, so is there any more discussion on that? All right, so what we'll do is we'll write this up as a formal bylaw, and we'll bring it to the next meeting as something we can pass and have our first bylaw. There are probably other bylaws in our charter that just exist because they're there, but for guidance in the future. Are we good? Okay, the next part is actually we did have a meeting, and I'd like to introduce Jeffrey Barton from Mountain Housing Opportunities. And the subcommittee met and we discussed Jeffrey Barton, and we recommend that he be offered the opportunity to become a part of the community council. And Jeffrey, since you're here, could you introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thanks, Keith, and thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to, hopefully join you all. I'm the director of real estate development at Mountain Housing Opportunities, which is a nonprofit affordable housing organization here in Asheville. And I've been with the organization 8 years. I work primarily in our rental development team, which has a commitment to finding ways to pair affordable housing and energy efficiency, as well as renewable energy generation. We actually have a 47 kW photovoltaic system that's about to get the meter swapped out from Duke any day. And we're really excited about ways that we've been able to, creatively bring renewable energy and energy efficiency to our low-income tenants, and I'd be, happy to serve as a liaison to the affordable housing community here locally, and I can answer any questions. That's sort of the short spiel on me, and if there's anything more specific you want me to go into, I'm happy to. One other thing I guess I will mention is we've partnered with Duke to offer pre-enrollment in the EnergyWise program. So all of the apartments we bring online have EnergyWise devices pre-installed. We just installed 212 of them at our new apartment complex at Maple Crest Apartments near the hospital. So really excited and appreciative of that partnership with Duke to get those devices pre-installed and make it more frictionless for rental tenants to participate in EnergyWise and realize the bill credit annually as a result.
Excellent, thank you, Jeffrey. And one of the reasons that the committee felt like that Jeffrey is a really good match for the community council is that he really fits. If he's in our bylaws, we have identified a need to work with affordable housing. And also there's the extra real estate kind of sort of part, which I think is really appealing. And but if anybody has any specific questions for Jeffrey, it's a great time to ask him since he's here. All right. So I, on behalf of the membership committee, would like to have a vote to accept Jeffrey Barton as a full member of the community council. And this is where we vote, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So. We're not all on the same screen, so we can't see all of our thumbs. All right, so Jeffrey, that looked like all 5 of us who are here voted for you, so welcome aboard.
Thanks, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and sometime we'll get to meet in person. All right. So for the next part of the agenda, communications, logistics, and agreements, I want to turn it over to Sam and Beatrice for this next session of our meeting.
So I did just want to say there is in the agenda public comment moment on that. So we want to do that.
Do you have any public comment?
You know, one of the things is Rick. One of the things that I know there's a lack of an HVAC person on this board. And actually, I'll say something in the public comment later that there really needs to be an HVAC person on this board. Unfortunately, we're totally overloaded and can't do it, but we will always show up as much as we can, and we will put in the time and energy to help make sure that that voice is here, unless and until somebody else, steps up to the plate. But we'll make sure that vacuum is filled no matter what.
We really appreciate that, Rick. HVAC is a huge energy user, and it's certainly part of our solutions. So we really appreciate your dedication to being here.
And we have on the charter listed an energy efficiency professional, like an energy efficiency rate or HVAC expert, as one of the key areas representation that we want to have. So be thinking of folks that you would like to nominate to serve in that role.
Are there any other public comments about our membership policies or how we should move forward on that? All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam and Beatrice for the next part of our agenda.
Beatrice, you want to talk about the different groups, the communication around the email chains and stuff like that?
Sorry, I was muted. Sure, thanks. So the members list is gone forever. I think you guys probably saw that, but we've deleted that Google listserv so that Jason will be able to easily be included in all lists and there won't be any confusion. We still have the info list, which includes, all the members, but also many people in the public who've shown interest. Just jump over for a sec. And then, then there's the tech committee Google list and the strategic planning Google list, which anybody can be added to any of those if they are wanting to stay up to date with those subcommittees. And, just maybe a general reminder to be aware of who's on what list and making sure that if you're trying to communicate with the whole group, communicate with the whole group. Yeah, I think that's about it with that.
How do we, if somebody wants to get added to one of these lists, do we have a spot on the website where they're listed or a contact where they can send an email to let us know that they want to be involved?
Yeah, I think it's just the info at Blue Horizons email, but they can email me directly too, or Sophie when she's back in the game. Yeah. So I think if you just do the contact list on our website, that'll just go to me. You know,
okay,
if you, yeah, and I can include that in the next newsletter. That's always a good idea to usually put that in the newsletter as like, if you want to be involved, you know, let us know, but maybe to remember to include an email is a good note.
Great, thank you.
I would say that the groups are primarily for, you know, communicating about meetings and things like that, not necessarily about outside pieces. However, you know, there's some groups like the strategic planning group where there's been more robust discussions around certain topics. So, you know, each group can kind of figure out exactly how they want to use the email group. But I know that tech committee is, you know, most recently been focused more on just the meetings, but there has been some discussion about specific technologies. So, yeah, I mean, each group can, yeah, if they want to set their own parameters, they can. But currently it's, you know, designed, especially, so if anyone's interested in these groups, please join if you aren't already.
Right. All right, good. So next we have the communication agreements with Sam.
Okay. Well, I guess first I'd be remiss if I didn't announce that Sophie had her baby. June is her name, and she was born last Friday, May the 7th. And yeah, born in the birthing center, and so Sophie's doing well, and the baby's good, and yeah, they're in the baby bliss land, I guess, or who knows, maybe they're in baby crazy land right now. But either way, let's send our good thoughts and prayers for Sophie. There is a meal train if anyone would like to do a meal for her. Just you can email Beatrice or I, and we'll send you the link for that. It's pretty easy to sign up, just in case anyone feels like making a little something special for her and her family. So that's that. And then the next part of the agenda is communication agreements. So I don't know about y'all, but I love to be able to meet in person. And the Zoom thing is, you know, we're a year in now, a year plus in, and it's served this function for a while, and I think it's done pretty well. But I'm experiencing some lack of connection that happens through this particular format, and some lack of, you know, the ability to really connect and get to know each other and have robust discussions and get to meet and learn about each other and stuff like that. So, you know, hopefully one day we will be able to meet in person again, hopefully sometime in 2021. We don't have that, you know, figured out quite yet, but that is a hope. And I hope, you know, maybe all of y'all agree you'd like to meet in person. But one of the things we wanted to do today is with this community council, we wanted to create a set of agreements around how we collaborate and how we communicate, both in the meeting and outside of the meeting. So this is kind of like a way for us to kind of all get on the same page around, like, how are we engaging each other, and what are some of the core principles we want to do when we engage each other. So Beatrice is going to take some notes about this, and we'll send it out to the group. But essentially, this is a way for us to really kind of all get on the same page to be able to, like, you know, strengthen our collaboration and our respect and communication of each other. So I'm just going to open it up at this point for y'all to chime in about, you know, different ways you would like to see us be able to communicate and collaborate. So if you don't say anything, I'll call on you, but I'm opening it up first. Anybody want to go?
I would just say, I don't know that we've really used the raise hand icon in our Zooms a whole lot, but that can be helpful if a lot of folks are trying to talk at once. I don't know that it would need to be an agreement all the time, but I know sometimes I just have speaker view on and I don't see everyone, and so I don't have a sense of who else is trying to speak. So that might be one thing we think about.
Okay. And you can see, I don't know if everyone's seeing on their thing, the reactions button at the very bottom right, got like a little smiley face. You click on that, and you can click raise hand. It's like I just raised my hand there, and then I can lower my hand. So that's how you do that. Looks like Rick has something. He's got his finger in the air. Go for it, Rick.
I just want to make sure everybody realizes you can put this thing into gallery view, because that really is the real functional way to do this. So you can see everyone at once.
Yeah, true. So up in the top right is view. And that's where I'd go. I go to gallery view, and that makes it easier to be able to look and see everybody's faces at once. So maybe all y'all know that by now, but that is helpful.
But it still doesn't work when there's a large crowd, because if it's two pages.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. What are some of the other ways you'd like to increase communication and collaboration with each other?
I find that in Zoom meetings in particular, people are really hesitant to speak, and they want to make sure that what they're saying is really well composed or well thought out. They want to make sure it's worth everybody's time, which is those are all good thoughts, but it also, that hesitancy really can sometimes inhibit good discussion. And so it is really important, if you have something to say, to mention it. And of course, be polite and tactful and all those things, but please talk.
Sam, if I could jump in,
yeah.
to kind of piggyback on Keith's comment, let's all recognize the limitation of the technology when we're doing what Keith asked us to do. I taught distance ed for 10 years, and it was a big battle to get students to jump in because they all felt they were going to be perceived as rude. And so if we could just assume that people are not rude unless we're given a real strong reason otherwise, that will help with that.
Keith, I'm not sure, this is Bill. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking, but do you remember when we did the Peaker a long time ago, and we had, like, every meeting, it's like, where is this thing now? What's going to happen? What's the next step? I always find it helpful, and maybe we have some of these things I'm not aware of, some things that we're chasing other than, net zero 2030 or 2050, something specific that we're going after, that we could say, okay, from meeting to meeting, Sam's got a deal, or Rick, or we're chasing something. It's like, what did we do? How close are we? And then you can celebrate victories. That's what I like. We can come together and say, okay, we nailed whatever that thing was. What's the next one? That I would find that helpful. I don't know how that fits into your question, but things like that I find helpful to come to meetings and where's this thing going? Thank you.
Yeah, like tracking progress on specific action items. I'm hearing you say. And think too just about like what makes meetings successful whenever we're talking about this question. Like what are some ways in which we can work together to build trust and respect and collaboration. Yeah, Brad.
Of course, not quite on that exact subject, but it seems to me that you got a lot of people on here who aren't on the committee. And so there's sort of a question of, in a discussion, what the etiquette is of those people jumping in, like I just did. And then I think your actual committee members may be holding back in the discussion because they're thinking, well, somebody else ought to speak up, when a lot of those people are not speaking up because they're not on the committee. And I'll just throw that out there as something that kind of makes this general format a little more cumbersome.
Yeah, and originally we'd said, okay, we'll kind of like try to get the input of the community council members first and then open it up to other folks. But like you said, like if no one's saying anything, I'm gonna call on you. So, we want to keep it, we were trying to like create it's like the balance between formal and informal processes. Kind of strike that, that nice balance there. Anyone else got anything to mention? Hey Phelps, welcome.
Hey everybody. Sorry, I got lost on the link.
Yeah, it's all good. We're just talking right now about like what we can do to create more collaborative forms of communication with each other. These can be like advanced things, or they can be like things we learn in kindergarten, you know? So it's, we're, you know, with the Zoom era, we're trying to figure out, you know, we're just trying to get the most out of these meetings essentially. And also between the meetings as well, because there's, you know, there's communications that happens between the meetings too. So trying to just create some, you know, agreements around that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I've definitely been struggling a little bit with like the Google Drive and the lists. And I think sometimes if I just had everybody's phone number and email in like something I could print out, that would go a long way for me.
So if you look at the notes that I just dropped, there is a link to a form with everybody's email and phone number, I believe, all the council members, which, you know, you're more than welcome to print out. Yeah.
Not that I'm saying we haven't been doing it. I mean, yeah, totally. And I think we're getting there too. But yeah, I think, yeah, that's great.
I'd also like to at some point, maybe not right now, but at some point talk about like, you know, if and when we're going to be able to meet in person and what that looks like, what people feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know, we can do outdoor meetings or something else, but I think that there is a little bit of loss of collaboration and connection when we're not together in person.
I would personally say for meeting as a group, I like the idea of meeting as soon as possible, as safe as possible. I mean, I think that there's a lot lost in not being in the same room with each other, not being able to have those conversations before and after the meetings. But we have to do them as soon as possible and as safe as possible, which kind of makes it hard for an outdoor meeting, you know, because if we were going to try to do an outdoor meeting, we'd still want people to be able to virtually attend, because that really expands the group of people who we can attend, people who can't travel or can travel in from Arizona or wherever they may happen to be. So I don't know if there's a way we can do both those things at once, you know, have it be in person, but still have it be virtual without having like cameras and stuff like that. And I'm not the tech guy here. I could try, but I wouldn't do it well.
We'll think about that on the staff level. And I think I'm just sensing maybe we send out a survey to everybody. Just that way everyone can kind of chime in like, okay, are you comfortable with meeting in person? If so, indoor or outdoor, just kind of a brief survey to get people's feedback in that way. That way we can not spend our time discussing that. So, but
yeah,
okay. Any other comments on this particular item?
Yeah, I think we should have maybe some discussion around how to resolve, you know, conflict when it does arise and differences of opinion, and, you know, in ways that respect that everybody's here to, you know, with the same goal and hoping for the same things, and just like how do we address it in a way that leaves everybody feeling fulfilled and heard, because, you know, we are dealing with many passionate people who really care about what we're doing, so we're going to have differences of opinion and differences of communication styles. So I just want to talk about how we could, you know, address it when conflict does arise between council members and in the public as well.
Bueller. I will say that, you know, we as staff are available to support, you know, mediation, conflict, or communications and that sort of stuff. If there's anybody else in the council that also feels passionate about that, we invite your support as well. Okay. Yes, Rick.
Two things. First, to what you just said and what Beatrice just posted, is there any list of subcommittee members or anything that we could have to see what these lists are? So I mean, like, for example, we didn't get a notice for a meeting with the subcommittees we thought we were on. So, no biggie, just we would just like to be able to actually communicate with people. Not required. And the other thing I just wanted to say, just bouncing off what you guys were saying earlier about talking and speaking up in meetings, I personally strongly encourage people to actually speak up and, you know, let go of your guard of going, oh, I'm going to say something stupid, because I mean, it really is not the case. It's the sum of everyone's input, because everyone's coming from a different perspective and all. It's like there's something of value in those different perspectives. Not everyone's a techie. That's not what this is about, you know?
Yep. Okay.
Sam, would you mind if I just read back the agreements for everybody to make sure everybody feels good about them, and if in case anybody wants to add anything?
Please do.
Thank you. Okay, so I have, and feel free to let me know in the chat if I didn't catch what you were trying to say. So I have use raise hand function when many people are trying to talk. Feel free to speak up and talk in a respectful manner. Recognize the limitations of the technology. Assume that people are not trying to be rude. Follow up and track progress with specific action items. Clarify the role of non-committee members. Acknowledge that conflict happens and find respectful ways to resolve it. And everyone's perspective, I didn't finish that. Everyone's perspective is important, valuable. Does that sound like?
I would just add for number 7, the conflict piece, I would just add that the staff is available to support, you know, mitigate or mediating differences of opinion or conflict if it arises.
Okay, so yeah, if anybody else has anything that they want to add to that, you know, feel free to let me or Sam know, and we can add it at a later time and talk about it again.
Great, thank you, Sam, for leading us through that. I think those will be really helpful, and continue to now navigate the Zoom world.
Yep.
So next thing is, all these things are information sharing and best practicing, what's working, what is not. So one of the things that I go back and forth about with that sort of thing, pretty much every time I write an email, is when to click reply all, or when to just reply to the person who wrote the email. Usually I defer to clicking reply all because you're all part of the conversation. I'm not sure if that's always the best thing, but I want to be open with the communications. But if you don't want me to do that, let me know. But for information sharing and best practices, how are we doing in that area? I mean, both within the committee and externally for the other people who are really reliable in coming to these meetings.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Keith. I mean, I think we, you know, it seems like we could do better there as far as, I think to me, we've kind of got some of these subcommittees going now, and then it's like, what's going on there versus what's going on in the main meeting here, and how's that all weaving together? I think there definitely could be some challenges for us in that area, just as far as everybody knowing what's going on. So I think getting clear on that would be good. Like, I know this strategic planning committee to me has felt like it's been being really productive, and we've had some good email chains, but I don't even know if everybody's on that email chain. Is one example of that. Our task seems to be like figure out what we should do, and that's sort of pretty central to the whole committee and the whole project. Would be one example I've been worrying about.
Well, I know that's part of where the committee reports are really important to bring everybody up to speed. But of course, I feel like that if you do have some good action items, things you're working on, it's fine to share that in between meetings. With the communications subgroup, we actually created a folder on the Google Drive, which has our notes from our last meeting. That would be really helpful to me, so I can go and look someplace and see what you met about. If somebody took notes at there for each of our subcommittees. We could also, to go back to what Rick said earlier, we could put the member list in that folder, who is a part of that committee, and we can use that to, that would be helpful for me. And yeah.
Sorry, Keith, could you repeat that? I missed that last part.
I was saying that we could also put the committee members as a directory of the committee members in the folders, and that would be really helpful. So when I'm looking for information, I have a place to start. Any other thoughts about how we can communicate better?
I would second that. And maybe this is just my lack of understanding, but I sent an email and I tried to use the Google Docs group for the Strategic Planning Committee, but I don't really know who's in that group versus who was on another separate email chain that we've been having, which is just, doing reply all, which started from some sort of a group somewhere. And so being able to, maybe I probably should just pick up the phone and ask Beatrice, how do I do this? But how do I see the people that are on that Google groups? Where is that? Maybe just being a neophyte with technology or whatever, but I don't know how to do it.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do a tutorial for anybody that wants to know how to check who's in what Google group. But I think, I can also just send a list of who's in what committee, maybe to the info list. Maybe that would help. Yeah.
Well, that would be a great start, Beatrice.
Maybe each committee should maintain their own list in some way or form. Is that a possibility? And Beatrice is muted. I don't know if she's saying anything, but.
Sorry, I was just trying to take notes too. Yeah, I think, my hope is that each committee is, in some ways, I feel like each committee needs to maintain their own list because I've never been to a technology meeting. I don't know who's in it. And I think it's a little bit much to expect staff, which is basically just me at this point, to, or for a few weeks until Sophie's back, to kind of administer all the different groups. So we need to kind of find a balance between making sure that everybody's aware of who's in what group, and also those groups need to be able to maintain their own administration and keep awareness of that.
To me, that seems perfectly reasonable. As the committees, and a lot of them are just coming together now, but I think that's perfectly reasonable for the committees to maintain their own members list and maintain their own minutes. And hopefully somebody on the group, each group has the ability to use the Google documents well enough to set that up. But if not, I mean, I'm sure that Beatrice could help us do that, or we could, if we wanted to have a workshop, or if you need that, just let us know and we can help bring that together. Any other thoughts on how we could best communicate and information sharing? All right, and the next part is all these things are really interconnected because we want to make sure that these meetings are really useful for moving us towards our goals, but also useful in getting all the most productive ideas. And I just want to make sure that when we have public comments that people feel like they're being heard, that we've got them in the right place. I know when we started this, at my first meeting as chair, I said we'd take public comments at the end of each subject that we covered, and then we'd have a general one at the end of the meeting. And I want to revisit that. Is that working for people, and how can we listen better? This is where you're supposed to talk.
Keith, I'll jump in. I think given what we've seen so far, I think as much public comment as possible is a good thing. I certainly haven't seen anything that would make me say I want to tamp down the public comment. In fact, I'd like to encourage more. So more opportunities would be better.
Yeah, at some point we had talked about building in a part of the meeting where we would respond to public comment if we had any responses. So it could be that we set aside 10 or 20 minutes to do that all as a group before we leave and forget what people have said.
Well, that's great idea, and you think that we can have more discussion is great, and having more discussion, that's good. I don't know if that would need to be its own agenda item, or in past groups that I've been a part, we've kept at the bottom of the minutes kind of a running, what do we call it? We called it a parking lot, where we would collect ideas and public comments from other meetings, and then we would go back at the end of the meetings and we'd address those things that were in there, and eventually some would move off. Sometimes they'd move up to major agenda items, but we keep track of them as kind of like a rolling catalog of public comments and discussions at the bottom of the minutes, which we don't do on these minutes, but we certainly could if we thought that would be helpful. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for this raise a hand, but all I have is clap, thumbs up. There's no hand on my thing.
Fortunately, I saw your fingers when you raised them.
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to just say to what you were saying about public comment, I really think that it's very positive to just respect the fact that people show up and contribute to this because they really want to help the community move forward, and to realize that, yes, the committee is the committee and should always go first. But if somebody raises their hand and isn't being egregious with their time, that's good input. These are people taking the time to be here, a couple hours, and whatever else on the side, because of course we're on the other committees too. So anyway, putting it at the end is, I got to be honest with you. I mean, that was maybe what was needed for the EITF and all that kind of stuff. It was a formal government process. But if public comment moves to the end, I'll just say goodbye, because it'll just be another one of those things where a bunch of people wanted to go off and run something and they're not really interested in the community. It's about the community.
Thank you, Rick. Any other thoughts? So, would you like us to have that parking lot at the end of the minutes? It's something it shouldn't be very difficult to do. We'll just have to start doing it. Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, I think it would be a good way to just keep track of, things people have brought up and then be able to bring them back up at the end of them, to the next meeting, or so we don't lose track of things people have said.
Cool. All right, I've seen a couple thumbs up, so we'll go ahead and start doing that. We'll try to collect them from this meeting and just move that forward, maybe get some things from the last meeting minutes that we've had. Great. All right.
I just want to say real quick, Keith, I'm grateful for everyone bearing with us through this process. We're basically working to create the systems that help this meeting really run well and us be effective. So no, we haven't even gotten to the part around like, what are we doing here together as a group? But this is how we do it is really important. So you're talking about how the systems really helps us as a staff kind of organize something good for y'all, and then helps everyone participate well. So thanks for bearing with us as we talk about some of these, maybe more mundane or bureaucratic pieces, but it's very helpful. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. All right, so we'll move on to, unless there's more discussion, we'll move on to item 5, partner membership updates and discussions. We've got an update for the 100% Renewable Strategic Planning Subcommittee.
Yeah, we had a meeting recently, and it was a great meeting, very robust discussion. We have a few things to report. First of all, I just want to, if Brad can give us like the 5-minute kind of overview of where the data stands right now. We're pretty good on the data. We're kind of wrapping it up. There is some more pieces to discover, but we're in pretty good shape. But Brad, if you want to go ahead and take it away with the about the data.
I sent out a email to the group, which we can share to everybody if we want to. Although it was kind of weird because I didn't get I sent it out to the Google Groups, and then I didn't get a copy myself when I sent it out to the Google Groups. So I'm like, well, did it really go out? Because I know I'm on the list and I didn't get one in my inbox. So
Brad, just check your sent mail.
It was in my sent mail, but it wasn't, it's like, unlike a lot of other applications, it doesn't send it. It sounds like it doesn't send it to me, to the sender, even though I'm on the list, but whatever.
You can also, anyway, we can talk more about it.
And you're talking about the strategic planning group, right? You're not talking about the larger BHPCC. Right?
No, I sent it to the strategic planning group. It was the first time I'd done that, which is why I made a comment about not knowing who was on the, who was on the list.
We got that, what you sent yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, so very, very briefly, I guess we had sort of a concern, and we still have a concern about not having any kind of updated data from the Cadmus report from Duke or from Dominion. And, I've been talking to Jason and Julie both about getting the data, and, we'll see. But I've come to the conclusion that the 2018 data is probably not too bad. And that was what and to start on, and what I was able to do is I was able to broaden the data by making some reasonable but gross assumptions about the data. And the fundamental thing is that over half of the energy that is used in Buncombe County, we don't have any idea about what that energy is at this point, other than we can take the population or some other metric from Buncombe County and allocate the state of North Carolina down to Buncombe County. So in this analysis, if you do it that way, you can come up with a full picture of all the energy use in Buncombe County. And in doing that, you come up with the notion that over 50% of it, about 55% of it, is oil and propane. of all of the energy use, including natural gas. So natural gas and electricity are less than half of energy use. The oil and propane mainly are for transportation, and then industry uses a lot of oil, and some homes and businesses heat with oil and propane. Now, those are the sectors which, if we electrify, well, the oil and propane use for heating and for transportation are sectors which, if you electrify those sectors, you get a big energy reduction in the electrification process, as much as 75% energy reduction by going to electricity. So while it's a big number, over 50%, if we just convert those end uses of oil to electricity, it becomes a much smaller percentage of the total pie, but still significant. And that, you know, then leads us though to basically the conclusion that greening the grid and having Duke, either us, you know, most of the cabinet's report was focused on how do we make the electricity use in buildings greener by doing our own solar or going out and acquiring some energy use. But basically they concluded that couldn't be done without major changes in policy at the state or national level. And I don't think I've come up with anything that disagrees with that at all, but the focus was all on electricity and to some smaller extent, natural gas. When really a lot of the energy, a lot of the problem is not just electricity and natural gas. And that's my main point. And this is all, I'm not sure I could share my screen fast enough to, so we won't try to show that to the group as a whole. The reason I think using for Dominion and Duke, the 2018 data, is in looking at the data that I do have for the area that goes up through 2020 is the data that Duke reports, I guess, to FERC for the Western region, which is hour by hour data. And it is very, you know, there are a lot of differences in the definitions, but it does give you a more robust time series of data for our area. And in running through those numbers, I was able to see that 60% of our electricity use of the Western region for Duke Progress is Buncombe County. Just comparing what Duke provided in 2018 for the Cadmus report with the data from 2016 through 2020. And the other note is that there doesn't seem to be much of a trend from 2016 to 2020 in that data for the Western region. And certainly, you know, there may be other sources of data for the Western region that I need to get my hands on for Duke, but I don't have, you know, that's the best data we have is the Duke data. So anyway, you know, it gives us, I think we've got enough for a baseline. And I developed through that, and I think our committee has developed through that a better insight for how energy is used in Buncombe County without really knowing how accurate some of that other information is, like transportation energy use, which comes up to half of total energy use is just energy use for transportation. So that's a few words about what we come up with. I think what we want to try to do is to start working on, okay, well, given this sort of more detailed, better view of the baseline than what was in the Cadmus report for Buncombe County, what does that say in terms of developing the pathways? And I think, you know, one of my thoughts in developing a pathway to get there by 2042 is from the time of the Cadmus report to today, Duke has made a major change in what their view of the composition of the energy that we receive from Duke will look like by 2042, which is the end point. Because Duke is committed to 100% or zero net carbon by 2050. So, you know, if they keep to that commitment, then that's better than what they were saying in 2018, a lot better. It's not 100% renewable because they're continuing to rely on a lot of the existing nuclear. It's also not 100% renewable in that there's probably some room in that plan for carbon capture and sequestration. And so both of those would not be technically 100% renewable. So we have to deal with, you know, I mean, what Cadmus did is they said, well, here's your baseline, here's what we know you're doing. And then above that is what Duke says they're going to do. And then there's all the rest. And all the rest was 90%. What I'm saying is all the rest now is a much smaller percent because Duke has increased what it says it's going to do. I don't know if Jason has any thoughts on what I'm saying here, but I think that's where we are in terms of the data. Any questions? And I'll be happy to go over the numbers, you know, if you want me to put it up on the screen and go over it at the next meeting.
Yeah, the only thing that I will reinforce, Brad, I know you said multiple times that you haven't gotten anything from Duke and Dominion, and you send it out through the Google listserv. Just so everybody knows, and I've said it a lot, I don't see anything that comes to Duke or Jason.Walls at Duke-energy.com. Every once in a while, somebody who I have their contacts in my address book will reply all, and then I'll see things at the bottom. But if you assume that I'm not responding, it's because I am not seeing these types of requests. And so it's, you know, we have run that rabbit inside of the company, and it's not going to change with Google's open source platform. It's not something that our IT security folks will allow. So, Brad, if you are waiting on something from me, and I can't commit to getting you all the data you want because I don't control it. I need direct emails. I can't, but it's kind of like, posting the notes in Google Drive. I can't get to those notes either through my work and through my company computer. So just everybody know, I mean, I hate to keep saying it, but it's the reality in which our IT security have decided to go with.
I'm fine to re-up the data request with the exact data that we think we might be able to get. Or that, well, really it's the data that was provided for 2018 for the Cadmus report. At a minimum, that's, getting it for 2019 and 2020, which is basically commercial, industrial, and residential company use and street lighting, I guess, are separate categories. It'd be good to know the wholesale information and do that, at least on an annual basis for Buncombe County, separated out. And that's basically what it is. But I'll send you an email just summarizing that again. I think I may have sent one a while back to you directly.
Yeah, Brad, I have seen one of those notes. I bet it's been 2 months ago, but if there's ongoing communications and that kind of stuff, I'm not seeing any of the ongoing communications. I do have one request from you, and we've had a lot of changes inside who's doing what inside of the company over the last couple of months. And so, it's a new person that I would need to lean on to pull that data. And so the resending it would be helpful. And I'm happy to try to track it down again, but I do need you to send it directly to me, not through a listserv.
I would, and Jason, this is just from the Strategic Planning Committee. I think we would all agree that if we could have Duke look at this energy for Buncombe County baseline that we've now constructed in terms of total use for energy in Buncombe County and get their thoughts on it, their feedback, what you think is right about it, what you think is wrong about it, an energy, somebody that really understands the overall energy situation, not just electricity. And certainly for Dominion as well, I'd love to have feedback and with a true expert on what we've come up with so far.
I'm happy to seek that expert. I can't do anything with, I don't have any connections other than Julie at Dominion, but I can elevate it inside of the company.
Sure. Okay. Will do.
Jason. Anyone else that was on that strategic planning call we just did the other day want to chime in with any pieces that we talked about that might be relevant for this group?
Hey, this is Steve Barron.
Hey, Steve.
Is it okay to give a little public comment now, or are we just talking?
Yeah, go because we're talking about the strategic planning group. So yeah.
Good. Okay. I just wanted to follow up on Brad's comments on the numbers. I think that the upshot is that while the numbers are imperfect and there's still more work to be done on establishing a more accurate view of the baseline, that the committee is probably ready to begin turning its attention to, so where do we focus our efforts? What are the steps we need to take? What emphasis do we need to make in which areas to try to reach our 100% renewable community-wide goal? And that's a subject of, and will be a subject of a lot of discussion. I sent it out an email earlier to, I don't know either who got it or not, but in the vein of that conversation. So one of the basic questions I think that needs to be asked in that connection, and I won't belabor the point or go into detail, is to what extent is it important to focus our energy, our efforts on trying to get more of our current electricity usage renewables, eventually 100% renewables. To what extent, alternatively, or maybe in conjunction with that, should we be focusing our efforts on converting fossil fuel use to electricity? They're obviously two pieces of the same puzzle, and we don't get to 100% either way, but we've got to make, the Blue Horizons project has got to make some calls about where we can be most effective, where to begin, how to get from here, the next steps eventually to our goal. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, I didn't catch that whole comment. Would you mind just dropping it in the chat so I can copy it into the notes?
Yeah, Beatrice, if you received my email, I think that sort of provides a more complete, from this morning, that provides provides a more complete kind of comment, and maybe that will work.
I don't think Beatrice is on that group. I'll forward it to you, Beatrice. Basically, like shifting now from the data to the action plan pathways for getting 100% renewable. That nuance coming just made. So yeah, I'll send that to you.
I don't know how helpful this would be, but in air quality, we think about things as a glide path, where we take the current emissions and pollution levels and the goals, and then we will actually plot out specific actions and see how it affects the slope of that glide path to meet the air quality goals. And it's really a helpful tool to establish what activities we want to do. I mean, and right now we're redoing our visibility plan for the next 10 years. Though the Clean Smokestacks Act was a really big part of that glide path and meeting our air quality goals. All right, anything else from the Strategic Planning Subcommittee, or any thoughts?
Did Rick have a question?
Yes.
Sorry, Steve, I don't really mean to be contrary, but I really do feel like it's an all of the above. I don't think and I think it's an all of the above question. I think that chart that Brad's laid out, which is very good, by the way, though I think you do need to separate fuels for vehicles from out of that propane and oil. We got to get it out separate so we can understand what's being used different places. And I think it can be done from the EIA information that I've seen, and which can be localized to counties and stuff like that. But I really feel like the role of this committee is in all the above. I know that we'll focus on different things for sure, but it's that communicating the conclusion of that chart is we don't get there unless we get EVs, unless we get rid of the fossil fuel for heating and the electricity, and then plus it's not something the public can do, but there's this industrial component. And I'll bring that up in the public comment. But I really think those three things have just got to all be on the plate at all times.
I completely agree with you. It's my point was that we can't do everything at once, and we ought to make judgment calls about what our priorities are and where we can be most effective. Some things, frankly, are out of our control in terms of advancing the ball. Some things maybe ought to wait till later. When does one push on getting folks to convert to EVs, that sort of thing. So there are judgment calls about how we spend our limited resources and our limited time, but it is all of the above. No question, no question about that. Sorry if I miscommunicated.
Basically, it's basically three things. I mean, it's energy efficiency and conservation to the extent that we can get it. It's electrification of all the fossil fuel uses, and it's greening the grid in some combination. And we got to do a little bit to make it by, say, 2030, get to a certain goal by 2030 or by 2042. We got to do different combinations of those three things. It's very simple until you do it. It's very simple conceptually, but actually doing it is not so simple.
Who's making the infographic?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what the communication or the community outreach, we need an infographic.
Dang it, it's me.
Please help somebody, help me.
All right, any other thoughts on this subject, or should we move on to the technology?
Technology.
All right.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Ben, you want to take this? You want me to take it or split it? Ben? Okay. All right. Jonathan ran the last meeting. That was his last as chairman. So Ben and I'll be the co-chairs of the coming up meeting. The last one was Thursday, May 6th. Let me mention three things. And Rick and Judy, Dave, Steve, you guys were there. So comment and keep me on track here. One of the things that we did was we had a guest come in, and he spoke from Duke and talked a lot about the Woodfin situation, what stopped it, what got it going again, the whole thing about avoidable cost, is this calculated correctly, and so on. Why they put it at the Woodfin landfill because of the methane generator, and all good news about this thing going ahead. And then he brought in a bunch of other topics as well. We also talked during the meeting, and I'm going to miss some things, but we talked at the meeting also about HVAC and rebates, and how do you incent people, and how do you incent the owners or the people who are the installers to promote the right things that we feel are going to get us where we want to go. So we got to first know what they are. You know, would you like this or that? You know, Rick brought up some stuff that was kind of crazy stuff that people were promoting, and it's like, no, you can't do that. What you really ought to be doing is promoting this. So we talked a lot about that, and it seemed like if you could get the money in the right place, the bonuses in the right place, you could pay people to do the things you want to get to our goals. Dave at the next meeting is going to talk to us about a very interesting topic, EVs, I'm going to say versus public transportation. Like, what if we just had all public transportation? Would that kind of solve things? So at this point, I want to stop, and I could see Dave's biting. So Dave, make a comment on what you're going to talk about the next time.
I'm going to talk about sustainable transportation holistically, and it is all good stuff. There's no conflict as long as we understand what each piece can do.
All right, so that's a hot meeting. You guys might want to dial into this thing at the tech committee the next time. And Rick, Judy, you guys want to say anything about HVAC or anything we missed or anything else at the meeting?
It's just that there's a piece that Robert and company picked up and tried to fly with a couple of years ago about talking to HVAC contractors. And after my brother-in-law got some quotes on HVAC upgrade, it was kind of like, oh, wow, we really need to open this can of worms and figure out how to do it. So we're going to hopefully get around to doing some interviews with some HVAC contractors like the owners and try to start figuring out how do we get people steered in the right direction. It is not asking them to spend more. It's just asking them to make the right decisions. It's interesting.
And one other thing I just remembered is we are looking to have some kind of, I don't know how to put it, format, type, something or other where a company comes to town and as part of the welcoming through the city council or something, it's, by the way, you need to meet the tech committee and they can help you with some things. And here's a format that we go through that you kind of sign up with since we're now partners in Asheville. So we're trying to figure some of that out. And I guess lastly, Steve, what did we miss? What did I miss that we were talking about at that meeting? Anything you want to bring up? Okay, anybody else at the meeting that wants to say anything that was there? Okay, back to you, Keith.
Great, thank you. The Energy Savers Network with, the Community Outreach Subcommittee has my name, but actually Liza's gonna report because you've heard me talk enough.
Yeah, so we have met one time as a subcommittee. That is Keith and Beatrice and I for now. Anyone else is welcome to join. But some of that conversation was kind of around how the council can help fill in some of the capacity needs for Blue Horizon staff, since they're clearly pretty short-staffed right now for the level of ambition that our work requires. And so next things we're looking at are updating the Blue Horizons website. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but it's still pretty geared toward the reducing demand around the peaker plant, which is still an important thing that's happened, but we can kind of change how that's positioned as more of a success and shift our focus to talking about the county and city community goals. And then a few other areas there are the brochures getting updated, and I think some other social media things like creating a LinkedIn account was one idea that came up. Aside from that, I think the main way council can support is amplifying some of the Blue Horizons efforts that are going on, mainly being the Solarize campaign happening right now. We're going to hear more about that in a little bit. And then the energy home chats that I think Beatrice has been holding, maybe someone else is having those, as well as some of the Energy Savers Network opportunities. So whether people have email lists for organizations that are going out where they can plug those things, or just sort of sharing them generally in your network, whatever we can do to amplify that work would be great. And we are going to meet, I think we're looking at May 25th, sometime between 3 and 5 p.m. Not a 2-hour meeting, a shorter meeting. But yeah, just let me know if you're interested in plugging into any of the marketing work. Oh, one other thing we talked about was filming short videos of council members talking about why we want to be involved in this work, what our hopes are. So we kind of have some video assets to get out there a little bit more. And so I think that's probably not something that will happen in the next month, just given staffing level right now with Blue Horizons project. But maybe in the next couple of months, we'll start hitting people up to make those. Keith or B, do you want to fill in anything I might have missed?
I think that's good. You covered all what we talked about. I think once we get more, I think the communications group, once we can go out and be out, will kind of focus more externally. But yeah, that's good. Anything
yeah, I think that was an awesome update, Eliza. Thank you. One thing I want to add is just like, this isn't really that specific, but just thinking about like, as we're doing things, it's hard to include the community later on, right? Like when you think about a community engagement, it's a lot easier to start with including people, or at least including some people early on, than it is to say, to like go to the community and say like, hey, I created this thing, like wanna join? So, or like, what do you like, I'm gonna push this data at you and like educate at you, instead of like including people from the beginning. So just like thinking about that in all of our efforts, like how can we include people from the beginning and include groups from the beginning, instead of just trying to create something and then kind of push it out as an educational nugget to people. And that's just like something to mull on as you're creating work and meeting in groups, is that community engagement really starts at the beginning of any process rather than later on.
Any comments, thoughts, input about the Community Engagement Committee? You're all invited. I see no hands, so we will move on to the Energy Savers Network.
Yeah, I'll just do a brief update about Energy Savers Network. So we are actively doing projects. We're doing 5 this week. And this is where we go out and weatherize low-income homes. And we have a new exciting project with the Housing Authority from the city of Asheville. They have 1,000 units they would like us to weatherize. So we are working on, we're going to start that project in the next 2 weeks. We're going to do a pilot project over the next month, just kind of get a feel for like what the staffing needs are and the volunteer needs are, and just how effective we can be. But yeah, we plan to do, you know, those 1,000 units in the course of the next year. So that'd be great. And we've also got some really good movement with some of our partners in the community to promote energy efficiency for low-income homes. So we are doing some with Evelyn Charities. As many of y'all might know, Evelyn Charities serves a lot of low-income homes and families in the community. And so they're going to be mailing out our information to all the people they serve over the next several months. And we've got some other good things in a hopper with that. And the last thing I'll say is we're in conversation with both the city and the county. So the city of Asheville and Buncombe County fund this work primarily. So the Blue Horizons Project and the Energy Savers Network. So we got to be very thankful that the city and the county see the value in this work and want to keep funding it. So it looks like the funding level will remain at the same level it has been for the past year. But we're in conversation with the folks from the sustainability offices from both city and county this week to talk about, you know, what are our goals for the coming year and how we use that funding wisely and to keep the projects going. So definitely give a lot of gratitude and appreciation for the work of Kira and Bridget and Amber and Jeremiah and all the work they do in the city and county to help to do this low-income work and Blue Horizons Project work. So any other comments or questions about Energy Savers and the weatherization work we're doing?
Sam, do you have any guesstimate or sense of what the energy savings will come out of that 1,000 unit project that you have going?
We don't, but we do. We have hired Amy Musser from Van Musser Designs as our measurement verification contractor. So they're going to be looking at all the work we're doing, because you know the work that we do pretty much every day on the weatherization front is about 5 to 6 hours in a home doing, you know, both light weatherization and sometimes deep weatherization. We actually did a project just 2 weeks ago. We do a blower door test on a lot of these. We improved the air infiltration by 60%. So, you know, it's pretty remarkable that kind of, we're getting an average of 25 to 30% of, you know, air leakage drop from the work that we're doing. So we're going to be actually getting energy bills to track what is the actual savings. So we'll be able to track both the deep energy retrofit work and then also the light retrofit work, which is more the housing authority is more like an hour and a half, 2 hours per unit. It's more on the lighter side of things. It's not as deep as some of the single family work that we do, single family homes and mobile homes work we do. So, but yeah, we'll have a report probably sometime in July around the energy savings from this year and how well we did.
That's great. Thanks.
Yep.
I would just, you know, I try to do, go out with Energy Savers 1 day a week. And I went out this morning, we did a mobile home. We found that, and I guess the point is 2 points really. One, that it's really one of the most satisfying things that I do, and it's a lot of fun to go out and do this and very educational. And so I would encourage everybody in this group to come out. I think Phelps is coming out some, and I would just encourage you to come out and volunteer with us. The second thing is that part of what we do is energy education. So the particular gentleman we were working with today, he lived in a very, actually pretty new mobile home, but he had a window air conditioner that he kept in all winter. And it was one of these that could be easily removed from the window, but he did not understand that he could take it out of the window. And when we took it out of the window versus the way he had it installed in his window over the winter, that we got a 30% reduction in air infiltration just by doing that. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and I just encourage people to get involved. It's a lot of fun.
Any other thoughts or comments? All right, we will move on to the Solarize Asheville report. Ken and Don.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And happy to have Beatrice weigh in as well. She's been integral in addition to Sophie, of course, in the terrific development work that's occurred around the Neighbor to Neighbor program. But just a quick update though. We got an update this morning. There were 40 contracts in the first 20 days, 340 kW, already expect to be to tier 8 by the end of the day. So there's an enormous amount of traction and interest, 400 some enrolled. They've gotten about halfway or more than halfway through the initial contacts with those folks. And then, so it's obviously, really caught on. The Neighbor to Neighbor program, which serves the low and moderate income community, is really started to gel in terms of an actual qualification process and the utilization of both the county and city funds that are connected to this. So it's an exciting period. And from what I understand, and Beatrice, you may be more up to date than I am on this, but there's 2 contracts already up and running and maybe a third by the end of the day. Okay, good. There you go, late information. So then that's wonderful because these are people who wouldn't be served otherwise without this program that's been developed. And then finally, just to sort of jump from that to where we need to go is we've opened up a fund raising sort of working group to continue to resource, if we can, other channels for us to make that fund larger. You can already donate online, and so individual donations are always accepted, but organizations and other like-minded, mission-aligned groups that want to be a part of that can certainly step up. But we want to go out and identify those and invite them to see how this has been structured and to learn more about it. So hopefully in future monthly settings like this, we'll be able to report more funds than we currently have to serve. There's also a workforce development component that's been continuing to move forward. And Beatrice, if you want to talk about that a little bit, because you've got the latest from Ben Williamson and Green Opportunities. And I'd be glad to answer any of the questions.
Yeah, so Ben from Green Opportunities he got a cohort together, kind of a 3-week work training cohort together that he got funding for through a separate stream, I believe, and he's doing a 3-week, cohort with Soul Farm and a plumbing company that I forget their name. And then he's working with Summit, which is the Solarize installer, and some other folks to raise funds to do some additional cohorts working on Solarize homes. So it's coming together. It sounds like the trainees are enjoying the program and learning a lot, and it's an opportunity to get more diversity and more folks who have barriers to employment into the solar industry, which I think is excellent. So it sounds like it's going well so far.
And Keith, that's all I had. We also have Eliza here, who's another steering committee participant with us. So if she wants to add anything as well, but by and large, that's the shape of things as we move through May.
I just wanted to add, a little bit about the Neighbor to Neighbor program, which you covered a bit, Ken, which is just that it's going awesome, and we have 3 contracts signed, and it's been really just a huge honor in my life to be able to offer these grants to folks who are struggling to pay their energy bills and would have no access to this technology otherwise. Talking about people who could, potentially be in the position of, not being able to hold on to their homes if they continue to have such high expenses. So it's really, really meaningful work, and I love it. And then the other thing that I just wanted to throw out there for the community council, if we're just throwing out ideas, is would we want to consider in the future continuing this program as an independent program separate from Solarize when Solarize is over, trying to maintain low-income solar granting for folks who struggle with high energy costs? We don't have to answer that now, but just wanted to put it out there.
I think in some form, continuing that work is key. I don't know what Solarize thinks about that moving forward, but I feel like it's such a key part of reaching our renewable energy goals, and whatever we can do, especially just because we've made so many great community local connections this year. I want to keep that momentum going if we can.
Yeah, I have interesting thoughts about that. I want to think about going bigger and community solar projects and stuff like that. And I've been talking to Beatrice about it. Hopefully we're gonna I want to learn more about the Neighbor to Neighbor program too.
There's also the possibility, there's Buncombe County is getting $51 million in federal funding. And so they're trying to figure out how that money is being spent. But, so there's discussions right now around you remember when when the ARA funding came through, there was all this shovel ready. You got to have something shovel ready to build. It looks like Biden administration is going to have a little more flexibility with that. But, channeling some of the money into low-income solar systems or community solar systems seems like a pathway of we could spend some of that money potentially. So we're kind of waiting on the criteria to come out from the federal government, but we'll give you updates when we know more about that.
And Sam, I would just punctuate. I apologize. Just real quick, I would punctuate what you said with the structure that's been created here being shovel ready, if that's the right phrase for it. The Neighbor to Neighbor program is in the vanguard. When Asheville was in the 20-some city cohort with Rocky Mountain Institute for Solarize programs that include this component or this dimension, there weren't many cities in America that were as progressed as we now are. And this is really ready to share, and it's structurally, built, which took some time. And that's a very good story to tell in terms of where funding ought to go, I think, in terms of being a legacy well beyond any kind of short-term Solarize program. So just my 2 cents. Thank you, Keith and Sam.
I would totally support this. But I really think when we're talking about low income, we need to deal with it holistically, and that we need to be looking at a similar kind of program for heat pumps for low income people, because there are many low income people who are using oil furnaces. It's a danger. They're using internally propane furnaces, and they're using straight resistance heat, or their heat pump is broken because it's 20 years old, doesn't work anymore, and they can't afford to get it fixed. And that house that I was in today, that's a perfect candidate, would have been perfect candidate for a mini split. The guy had a resistance heat floor system in a 1-bedroom mobile home.
I like that idea too. I really like the heat pumps and the holistic approach to low income energy solutions.
Rick, go ahead.
Well, I mean, just saying, there might be something, yeah, I don't know, kind of a parallel to Solarize for those heat pumps. You know, I mean, yeah, all it takes is finding a contractor who's willing to dive in, or even doing something with a contractor and with the green opportunities and stuff. You know, there's big opportunities there. All it takes is one guy with a license to pull stuff like that off.
And we have been in contact with the manufacturer around mini splits that they would give us a bulk discount for mini splits. So, yeah.
Think big. Yeah, for what it's worth, just think big. There's nothing to think that we can't. We have that ability among us.
And if we're not doing mobile, I mean, we got 18,000 mobile homes. If we're not doing solar on mobile homes, then what are we going to do for the low income people who live in mobile homes if we don't do heat pumps?
In reality, the data that Brad put together, the chart, Brad, the data that you put together says it's that fuel use is what's got to end. It's almost a higher priority than solar on the roof of anything. Duke can put solar in at a much, I mean, it's good for everybody to put solar in. I agree completely. But Duke can put solar in at a lower cost per watt than the rest of us can. But you know what? You can't solve HVAC without solving every single building for fossil.
Great conversation. Any other thoughts and comments before we move forward? No hands, so we are to the residential and commercial energy efficiency with Beatrice, Nathan, and Sam.
You want to go first, Beatrice? You're talking about residential? You need to go first with commercial.
Well, in terms of, I mean, Solarize is really the main residential thing that we're doing, and Energy Savers. And then we've been doing these home energy chats, but that's really a pretty small portion. I've only done one since the last meeting, so.
Cool, and I'm just gonna say that Duke Energy has a new program for commercial customers called Direct Efficiency. It's interesting, it's sort of like the ESCO model. I don't know if everyone knows what the ESCOs are, but an energy services company. But basically, it's the first time I've seen Duke do this, where it's basically Duke will come out, do a free audit, and will list the different types of measures that need to happen. We'll do the install, and then you can pay back the savings on your utility bill. Or maybe it's not on the utility bill, but it's like basically they'll design, fund it, install it, meter it, and maintain energy efficiency upgrades. So, so I have a call with Joe Gill, I think tomorrow, to talk about this. And this is like a, you know, it's a way for businesses to do free upgrades with no capital up front, and basically, you know, pay the back on savings. And it's lighting, HVAC, and refrigeration. So this could really be a game changer for a lot of commercial businesses, because you know, they've had the lighting piece of it for a long time, but the HVAC and refrigeration haven't been as much of a component of it. But it's a program called Direct Efficiency. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat here. Let's see, everyone, so you can see. Yeah, there it is. So that link will take you to that program. And so we're working right now with South Base Institute around our messaging for the commercial customers, and we have a list that Buncombe County has provided to us. And so we've got the messaging, we've got a flyer. We're going to talk about direct efficiency, and then within the next month or so, we're going to start doing the calls to customers, trying to get them signed up for this. So we'll be looking at with Duke Energy representatives like Joe and other people who sell direct efficiency, looking at the customers they've already contacted and the ones they haven't, and we'll go through the process of contacting ones that they haven't, and then trying to collaborate on trying to get the commercial customers that haven't done the upgrades yet to follow through on doing deeper retrofits than just the lighting stuff. So yeah, so that's the commercial part of Blue Horizons project that's in motion currently.
Cool. Any other comments or discussion about this item? Go ahead, Rick.
No, I just want to say that's like huge news. Sounds like the on-bill financing we've been talking about for years. And I'm just really hoping Jason, maybe tech committee, whoever, somebody can maybe give a briefing on that at some point. I'll go read the stuff on the website, but it's just huge news.
Yeah.
Off gas?
I mean, it's on the, it's a relatively new product, but I think getting Joe actually in front of this whole group would be good after Sam kind of does a little bit of digging, because it sounds really simple, but I've also learned that sometimes when things sound simple, there are some nuances in the way the tariff for the program are structured. So it will be interesting for Sam to kind of have a one-on-one with Joe to learn more. And then if it's appropriate, it would make for a nice presentation to a broader group.
It's also cool because like there's some of the commercial customers opt out of energy efficiency programs with Duke. This program kind of goes around that. So even if someone's opted out, they can still qualify for this, being a Duke Energy customer. So they might not get as many rebates, but they can, go through the process of getting a free audit, get equipment recommendations, and they get the financing to be able to do it. So I'm not 100% sure if it's on-bill financing or if it's like the financing is kind of parallel or whatever. But there is more movement on-bill financing stuff happening on the statewide level that it looks like it's getting close. I don't think it's confirmed yet, but it's Jen Weiss and her group at Duke Nicholas Institute are working on that, and it is there's progress on the on-bill financing piece. So yeah, so we'll get good point, Jason. After I talk to Joe, I'll see if he can come give a presentation on this. There's also another program called Smart Path, which is a new program. And I can't remember exactly what it's for, but it's it also is a new offering from Duke Energy that's, advanced energy efficiency.
Excellent. Any other thought or conversation on that? I did have a thought about how is it that we as the community council, and not just the outreach committee, but how can we help more people know about this? I mean, these are good stories about positive movement, things that are getting us towards our goals, moving the whole community forward as far as energy and that. And how can we get that story out there? How can we let people know that these programs are available? Because a lot of times we're all so super saturated. It's like an ocean of information, and we're all in our own boats trying to make sure it doesn't sink or stays floating. That's a better way to put it. But how can we as a council get this information out there better and communicate better?
What we've heard about with small businesses and the commercial customers is that you basically have to make a direct contact and get in front of them. They don't necessarily respond to the bill inserts very well. Some might, but most don't. So you have to, because they're so busy, just be able to raise the level of need for this service to one where they'll pay attention to. So if anyone on this call has contacts with local restaurants or manufacturing facilities or commercial businesses, or anything like that, you can send those to us, and then we can add that to the list of people we'll either will reach out to, or someone at Duke can reach out to learn about doing an upgrade for them.
Excellent. All right, so we're to other business and public comment. So first, anybody have any other business that they'd like to discuss? Put on our agenda for next month. Dave King had a commercial, the commercial customers having time and the peak demand discussion. He wanted to table that till next time because he couldn't be here today. I told him we would. So other business and public comment. Again, this is where you talk. Well, this is a very quiet room for now.
Well, I'll just bring up something I was going to say. I watched the Charlotte Mecklenburg climate review of the Duke Energy climate plan. And I was wondering if it might ever be a benefit for us to reach out to those folks that, worked on the review process of the Duke plan and just pick their minds as far as some of the things that they saw. I thought it was a very well done presentation for those that might have, I don't know if anyone else managed to catch it or not.
I watched it. I thought it was very, very good, very interesting. I mean, and a lot of crossover between what we're doing and what that report was. I do think that it's definitely worth looking at the report.
Definitely.
I won't be able to find it and put it in the chat. I also, at the beginning of the meeting, put a link to, it's an air quality report done by, I don't remember what all the words stand for, but it's a Southeastern air quality groups, the states belong to it. And it had some really interesting correlations between air quality and energy in that report. So I put a link to that report. It's the first thing in the chat box, if you're interested in that. But you're right, Ken, that was a very good presentation. If they recorded it, it'd be worth going back and listening to. If you are an energy geek, which I think we all are. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, if there's the time. So one of the things, we brought this up in the tech committee in depth. One of the things we've been working is another innovation set. This is basically what I would call an industrial application of heat pumps for starting to recover the waste streams that are there everywhere. Like there's waste streams in the fresh air ventilation for basically all commercial buildings. And there's waste streams in things like breweries and whatever else. So the early, and we've got this stellar team built that involves people all across the country and doing some really big name parties and stuff. So we've gotten enough together on this to start turning eyes, and actually turned some scary eyes the other day when somebody said, well, do you have manufacturing lined up? Because this guy's clients were people like 3M and GM. He was like, are you ready to meet their demand? It's kind of like, okay, wait a minute. So we're looking for some people around, hopefully 1 or 2 people around here who would be interested in working with us to put together what I would call a prototype, just sort of case studies of how it would apply, and to be party with some grant apps and whatnot. And the DOE, for example, has something up right now where they would pay 50% of the cost of installing something, which means that the client would pay basically the hardware, which is a big deal. And so there's a lot of these things out there. This has to do with just some high temp heat pumps and some things that aren't commercially available right now. The ideal party to be interested would be somebody who not just has a high energy use, even if it's just ventilation, could be the Civic Center, for example. But somebody who also has an energy manager, somebody who's who has a role in the play and understands the loss and understands the money stream involved in the loss. Or I hadn't even thought of the Civic Center until sitting here right now, or who equally maybe just has a party behind them, like the county and the city, who understand the monetary loss in that direct ventilation application. And so if any of y'all know anyone like that or have any suggestions of who we should speak with, who might be interested in being on a grant apps before like ARPA E and the DOE and others, please let us know.
Go ahead, Mike.
Now, if I could just take a quick minute, I wanted to introduce myself. I just moved to Asheville from Denver 6 weeks ago. And my wife and I are building a net zero home in the Olivet community in Woodfin. But I've been pushing close to 50 years working on solar, wind efficiency, both at the city, county, state and federal levels and global. I now only have 2 clients, one co-authoring these 500-page Third Industrial Revolution strategy roadmaps with Jeremy Rifkin and his team. And also for Pearl Jam, I do their climate emissions and recommendations for how to shrink and shift and source emission-free mitigation steps. So that's freed up a lot of my time for volunteers. So I'm very excited about this group. And I've also see Dave Erb, who's also part of the microgrid group that Keith Thompson and Kelly Gloger, but I look forward to, I've just been listening this whole time. I just want to introduce myself quickly.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
And also, welcome, Jeffrey. I hope we didn't scare you away with this meeting.
Not at all. No, thanks so much for having me. And I've been pretty quiet this meeting, but I'll pipe in the future as I get my legs under me.
And to come back to what Rick said, if you've got any ideas, I assume they should contact you directly, right, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, if anyone has, the hospital would be one of these giant opportunities for energy recovery and, massive ventilation. Like, for example, one of the reasons we've gotten into this is we're doing this project with this class at MIT. And they have whole buildings that have 100% fresh air HVAC because they're P4 labs. So, it's just all the air goes out, all the air comes in. And so there's just huge opportunities for some of these ventilation applications. That's where we'd like to start this because it's a very low temperature. It has to do with multi-slice heat pumps and stuff, kind of a new application. But if anybody knows, for example, energy directors, the hospitals, stuff like that.
All right, cool.
Just put us in touch because we don't, we're not big networkers, we're nerds, and we don't know these people.
All right. Any other comments or thoughts?
Yes. Sorry, I was raising my hand. Yeah, so I got a couple private chats wanting to add a few things to the agreements, which I'll add. If I don't get it right now, I'll add it afterwards. But one of them is to use inclusive language. When we're talking about highly technical topics, try not to use acronyms, try to use language that the average person could understand so that when we are honored with members of the public attending, they are able to understand what we're talking about, at least to some degree. So just try to, monitor that you're using language that is inclusive. And if somebody asks for clarification, try to do that in a way that is clarifying and thoughtful. And then also somebody else has requested that I add to the agreement that says, assume that people are not being rude or not trying to be rude, which we all, sometimes this platform can be unclear of what, the communication style that somebody's trying to convey. And they've asked that we also add to that, that intent does not always negate impact, so that, you may not be trying to be rude, but if you're if you do something that is upsetting to somebody, then to acknowledge that that impact has happened, even if it wasn't your intent.
All right, thank you for adding that. And if I could ask you to also collect the links that are in the chat and put those in the minutes also. That's really useful if people want to go back and check those. All right, unless there's any more discussion, I think we are done. And I only took 10 pages of notes.
Great job, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Great.
Thank you for coming, and
I'm going to turn off
play
the
outside.
Yeah, looks good.